Metro Vancouver home sales finished the year off on a high note. Riding off the momentum we saw in October and November, December home sales were up 30% relative to December of 2023. So what's happening in the market? How is this impacting prices? And what do we expect to see as we start off 2025? I'm Adina with Adina, YVR, Vancouver Real Estate Group and Oakland Realty here with your January 2025 market update. Let's jump right into the numbers and take a look at where we finished off the year in December and what happened overall in the year of 2024. Let's start off looking at home sales. In the month of December, we had just over 1,760 homes sold on the MLS. This is down 19% relative to November, but it's up 31% relative to December last year. And it's down about 15% relative to the 10-year sales average for the month of December. While this is still below the long-term seasonal average, we see that it's an improvement relative to the previous months in this year when we were at 25% or more below that 10-year average. Looking at this by property type, we see that December home sales of detached homes were up 31% relative to the previous year. For attached townhomes and duplexes, sales were up 56% relative to December of the previous year. And for condo apartments, sales were up 24% relative to the previous year. And in the month of December, we also saw home sellers being relatively active. We had just under 1,700 homes listed for sale on the MLS. This was up 26% relative to December of the previous year, and it was down just 1% below the 10-year sales average for the month of December. When we look at the total amount of inventory, we saw a large decline in the number of homes available for sale on the MLS. This is pretty typical for the month of December as a lot of listings expire December 31st. As we closed off December, we had just under 11,000 homes listed for sale on the MLS. This is down 55% relative to November, yet it's still up 24% relative to this time last year, and it's 25% above the 10-year sales average for the month of December. So how did this change in activity impact prices? Well, before we jump right into prices, let's take a look at the sales to active listings ratio. As you recall, this is the leading indicator showing us if prices are on their way up or down, as it shows the relative balance between the total number of sales and inventory levels in our marketplace. For a quick recap, the sales to active listings ratio simply looks at the number of sales in a given month divided by the active listings left over at the end of that month. And this ratio shows us whether we're in buyer's market territory or seller's market territory or balanced conditions. When this ratio is above 21% for a sustained period of time, we're typically in seller's market territory and prices on their way up. And when this ratio is below 12% for a sustained period of time, we're typically in buyer's market territory with prices on their way down. Anything in between is considered balanced market territory, and prices typically stabilize. In the month of December, our sales to active listings ratio was 16.8%. This is almost unchanged, it's just down 0.3% relative to November, and it's right on par with where we started off the year last January. And this puts us right in balanced market territory where prices are expected to stabilize. Looking at this by property type, we see that this ratio for detached homes was 12%, right on the cusp of buyer's market territory. For attached townhomes and duplexes, this ratio was almost 24% in prime seller's market territory. And for condo apartments, this ratio was just under 19%, putting it in balanced market territory. So how is this reflected in the prices? Well, we've come pretty much full circle relative to where we were this time last year. The HPI composite benchmark price for all property types finished off the year at $1,171,500. This is almost unchanged relative to the month of November. It's down just 0.1%, and relative to December of the previous year, we're up 0.5%. Looking at this broken down by property type, we see that the benchmark price for detached homes is currently $1,997,000. This is nearly unchanged relative to November, and it's up 2% relative to December of the previous year. For attached townhomes and duplexes, the benchmark price is $1,114,600. This is down 0.3% relative to November, and it's up 3.4% relative to December of the previous year. And for condo apartments, the benchmark price is $749,900. This is down 0.4% relative to November, and it's a decrease of just 0.1% relative to December of the previous year. Reflecting back on the momentum and the pace of activity that we saw in 2024, this time last year, we started off the year on a pretty high note as people were very optimistic about rates coming down. And what we started seeing is that the pace of activity built up pretty quickly from January up until about March. And that's also when we started seeing a lot more inventory coming onto the market was in the spring market. And from there, what we saw was that activity started to decline. And although the Bank of Canada started decreasing the rates in June, we really didn't see that buyer demand pick up in a significant way until October. In total for the year, we had 26,561 homes sold on the MLS. This was an increase of 1% relative to 2023, and it was a decrease of 9% relative to 2022. And it was 21% below the 10-year sales average. In total, we had 60,388 homes listed for sale on the MLS in 2024. This was an increase of 19% relative to 2023 numbers. It was an increase of almost 10% relative to the 2022 numbers. And relative to the 10-year sales average, this was just 6% above that. Overall, 2024 was a very challenging year for our market. And this was due, as everyone knows, to changes in the economy, with interest rates, political uncertainty, and unprecedented affordability challenges for home buyers in our marketplace. Yet seeing the year finish off on such a strong note shows us once again just how resilient Vancouver's housing market is. And while we're undoubtedly going to face more challenges this year, especially with the political uncertainty going on, it does seem like rates are on their way down and that buyers and sellers are more optimistic and ready to make their move. So we're entering the year with a period of stability, and I expect that we're going to see this for the next few months. Right now in the month of January, for the first few weeks, we've seen a lot of buyers actively looking in the marketplace, and we've even seen a few multiple offers coming out for certain properties where the inventory is low. While it's clear that the buyer demand is there and it's quite healthy, what's unclear and harder to predict is what's going to happen with sellers this year. And it's these inventory levels that really drive what happens in the market. When inventory levels drop down, so if they stay low, we're likely going to see activity heating up amongst buyers and prices increasing. But if we start seeing a lot of sellers coming onto the marketplace and listing a lot of inventory, that's typically when market conditions cool off. So right now we're entering the year in stable market conditions, and where we go is really going to be dependent on that seller activity. I expect that we're probably going to see fairly strong market activity in the next few months as we head into the spring. Based on what we're seeing right now, I expect that we're going to see fairly strong market conditions in the next few months as we head into the spring market. But as we've seen, market conditions can change very quickly. So to stay up to date with what's happening in the market, be sure to subscribe here on YouTube, where I'll be updating you every month on what's going on in the market. And in the meantime, you can also follow me on Instagram at adina.yvr. If you're thinking of making a move this year and would like to discuss your options, you could click the link down below in the description here on YouTube, or you could click the link in my bio on Instagram. Wishing you and your loved ones a very happy new year, and I can't wait to see you in February.